So before the election, we looked at a piece of data from Abacus, and they suggested that the only outcome in the election that would make Canadians more happy than unhappy was the NDP and the Liberals working together. And after the election, we have that potential. The Liberals have a lot of seats, but they don't quite have a majority. And the NDP can put them over that 170-seat hump, and they could build a strong coalition government that could implement some really progressive and bold and innovative policies. And the majority of Canadians still right now want to see that Liberal NDP cooperation. Nearly 2/3 of Canadians want to see that. And the vast majority of both Liberals and NDPers want to see that too. People who support either of those parties want those parties to work together, and they want them to work together in progressive direction. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what some of those directions are, but I just want to outline that thus far, it seems like Justin Trudeau isn't willing to listen to the majority of Canadians and the majority of Liberal Party voters, because he has said he will not build a coalition with the NDP or anybody, and his first two priorities aren't any of the progressive programs offered by the NDP, but a tax cut, which is regressive, less regressive than the conservative tax cut, but regressive nonetheless, and a pipeline that is increasingly unpopular with non-conservative voters. These are not progressive priorities. These are priorities that align Justin Trudeau more with Andrew Scheer than with Jagmeet Singh. And again, Canadians do not want Liberal conservative cooperation. They want Liberal NDP cooperation. Let's look at the chart that Abacus provided here in this polling data about what Canadians want to see cooperation on between the NDP and Liberals. And what we're going to see, interestingly enough, is that Canadians want cooperation between the NDP and Liberals to implement the very promises the NDP made in this election. In effect, they want the Liberals to work with the NDP to implement the NDP's program, at least on the broadest issues. So let's bring up the chart. So as you can see, Canadians want to see the rich taxed more, both increasing their taxes and closing the loopholes that they currently exploit. Now, of course, as we know, the NDP ran on a wealth tax and on higher capital gains taxes and on higher income taxes and on higher corporation taxes. And so in all of that, you feel, potentially at least, that there's room for the Liberals to work with the NDP to implement the NDP's tax program. Just as popular, really, is the NDP's pharmacare plan. They want to ensure that Canadians have access to affordable prescription medication. They want a universal plan. They also want immediate action to ensure equality between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians, and the NDP made a big deal about that in this election. The NDP also made a big deal about reducing cell phone prices and internet prices. The NDP also made a big deal, and they were the only party to do this, to talk about a dental care program which would cover low-income Canadians. That was a key part of the NDP's platform. Keep in mind, guys, that all of these policies have support of like 75% or more of Canadians. They're all supported by 3/4 of Canadians or more. This is incredible. This is an incredible consensus on the NDP's progressive program. Undeniably, Canadians want what the NDP was offering, but because of first past the post, they sort of decided to just go with the Liberals. But the Liberals don't seem to realize, or they don't care, that what progressive voters wanted, what Liberal and NDP and Green voters wanted, and even Bloc voters, if we're probably being honest, wanted, was the NDP program. So it's incumbent on Justin Trudeau to really work with the NDP to implement a program that the majority of his own voters supported. And even though less popular, the NDP's plans on all of the below policies are still popular with a majority of Canadians, in some cases with a healthy majority. They want to see the ending of fossil fuel subsidies. Again, the NDP campaigned on that. That's nearly 2/3 of Canadians. Almost 3/4 of Canadians want the country to build 500,000 affordable housing units, an NDP policy. 65% of Canadians want to end interest on federal student loans, also an NDP policy. And the most controversial on the list, but still supported by a majority of Canadians, is that Canadians want to see an end to our first past the post system, not to be replaced by ranked ballots, but by a definitive system of proportional representation. They're very clear on using that here. Proportional representation. Even though that's only 54%, it is still supported by a majority of Canadians. So guys, as we can see, the NDP program is a popular program. All of these things are something that the NDP ran on. Maybe the Liberals ran on elements of these things as well, but not as stridently and not as consistently. And some of these things were only run on by the NDP. So as we can see, Justin Trudeau is in the driver's seat right now. He has a minority government, but it's a strong minority. He won't need the NDP's support most of the time to pass legislation. But Canadians want to see him work with the NDP. Liberals want to see him work with the NDP. NDPers want to see him work with the NDP. The vast majority of our country wants to see him work with the NDP to implement the policies the NDP ran on. Look, I noted this before, but many Canadians in this election voted for Justin Trudeau not because they liked him, or because they respected him, or because they even wanted the Liberal program. They voted for him because they didn't want Andrew Scheer. And in some cases, that strategic vote wasn't even rational. They voted strategically in ridings the Conservatives had no chance in. But the point is, the Liberals got a significant amount of votes from people who weren't voting for them, but against Andrew Scheer. And Justin Trudeau needs to realize that he did not earn those votes based on what the Liberals were running on ideologically. He earned them out of pure strategy. Many of those voters, as we see, wanted what Jagmeet Singh and the NDP were offering much more than what Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were offering. And he also has to remember that while first past the post, the broken system that it is, nearly gave him a majority, he has less support from the population than any prime minister has had in the history of this country. Only a third of Canadians voted for his party. That is not a sign that he has the right or the mandate to govern as if he has a majority. That is a sign from Canadians that they want him to work with other parties to achieve pragmatic but bold results, like the NDP was offering. So we need to remind Justin Trudeau that this is what Canadians want. And if you're a Liberal listening to this, or if you have a friend who's a Liberal voter or a Liberal supporter who's listening to this, remind them of this data. Let them know that while Justin Trudeau retained power, he didn't actually win a mandate for his center-right policies. The mandate in this election was for left-wing policies supported by the NDP. So it is incumbent upon Trudeau to get on the phone, to call Jagmeet Singh, and to work with Singh on all of these progressive programs. Let's hope he does. Again, at least as of right now, he's signaled he's much more willing to work with Andrew Scheer on pipelines and tax cuts than he is to work with Jagmeet Singh on dental care, pharmacare, taxing the rich, and on and on and on. But hopefully with pressure inside Parliament from the NDP and outside Parliament from the vast majority of progressive Canadians, we can force this Liberal government to actually implement a progressive program and remind them that just because they got strategic votes from progressives doesn't mean progressives are giving them a blank check for running a center-right government.